The man in the gray hoodie looked completely ordinary. No tattoos on his neck, no aggressive posture, no stare down. He was just standing there, arms loose, chin down, looking almost bored. The drunk guy getting in his face had no idea. Nobody in that parking lot had any idea. What happened in the next 4 seconds wasn't a street fight. It was a masterclass delivered to someone who had no idea they just enrolled. That's the thing about real fighters. They don't look like what you imagine. They wear regular clothes, they drink coffee, they smile at strangers. And then somebody makes the mistake of pushing them, and everything changes. This video is about those moments. 8 times a professional fighter or elite martial artist was hiding in plain sight. And the second someone crossed the line, the disguise came off completely. Number 1. Bas Rutten breaks up a bar fight without throwing a single punch. Before Bas Rutten was a UFC heavyweight champion, he spent years working as a bouncer in the Netherlands. Young, relatively unknown, and standing in a bar full of drunk men who had no idea what he was. One night, a group of men started escalating, threatening other patrons, getting physical with staff. Rutten didn't rush them. He didn't puff his chest. He walked over calmly, introduced himself politely, and gave them one clear warning. They laughed at him. That was their mistake. What followed wasn't chaos, it was surgical. Rutten later described how he would identify the most dangerous man in a group first, neutralize the threat, and use the shock on the others to de-escalate without further violence. This is textbook predator behavior. Assess, prioritize, execute. The men in that bar thought they were dealing with a bouncer. They were dealing with one of the most dangerous strikers in martial arts history wearing a button-down shirt. Number 2. Rickson Gracie on the beach. The 1995 documentary Choke follows a Rickson Gracie, widely considered the greatest Gracie family member in terms of pure fighting ability, through his daily life in Brazil. In one of the most quietly terrifying sequences ever captured on film, Rickson is shown training on the beach. Just a middle-aged Brazilian man doing yoga and breathing exercises on the sand, completely unassuming. But there is a scene in the documentary where Rickson discusses being challenged repeatedly by men who did not know who he was. His response is never theatrical. He describes his mindset as completely flat. No anxiety, no adrenaline spike, no anger. Just a calm shift into problem-solving mode. This is the essence of hiding in plain sight. Rickson walks through the world looking like someone's uncle. He carries an undefeated record in Veil Judo and no-rules competition that most historians estimate sits somewhere between 400 and 450 fights. The beach never looked more dangerous. Number 3. Lyoto Machida defends his father at a restaurant. Lyoto Machida built his entire UFC career on invisibility. His Shotokan karate style made him nearly impossible to read. He would stand at long range, hands low, weight distributed in a way that looked almost wrong, then explode into range and disappear before the opponent could process what happened. That same quality followed him off the canvas. Accounts of an incident in Brazil describe Machida at a family dinner when an altercation broke out involving his father. The aggressor had no idea who Lyoto was. He saw a quiet, lean man who hadn't raised his voice once during the escalation and read that as weakness. What he encountered instead was the same Machida who knocked out Rashad Evans so fast that Evans's knees buckled before his brain registered the hit. The technical mistake the aggressor made was the same one every Machida opponent made in the UFC. He closed distance without controlling range, and he had no answer for what came back at him. Number 4. Anderson Silva at a gas station. Anderson Silva spent the better part of a decade making world-class fighters look confused. He would stand in front of them with his hands down, head moving on a swivel, and absorb punches that somehow never landed, as if reality worked slightly differently for him. Off-camera, Silva carried the same quiet energy. Footage and documented accounts from Brazil show Silva in a confrontation at a petrol station. Calm, measured, unreadable. The man provoking him was loud. Silva was not. Here is the technical reality of fighting someone like Anderson Silva in a street context. His reflexes, built over decades of elite competition, operate below conscious processing speed. By the time an untrained person decides to throw a punch, Silva has already made 3 decisions about where he's going to be and what's going to happen next. The aggressor at that petrol station was working with a completely different rulebook and had no idea the game had already started. Here's something worth thinking about. Every single person in this video made the same mistake. They looked at someone and decided what that person was capable of based on how they appeared. No aggression, no visible muscle, no reputation they recognized, and they assumed safety. So here's the question, and drop your answer in the comments because this is genuinely interesting. If you had to guess, What percentage of people you walk past every single day have formal combat training? Military, law enforcement, BJJ, Muay Thai, boxing. How many of them are hiding in plain sight right now? Because the answer might make you rethink every argument you've ever considered escalating. Number 5, Conor McGregor sparring incident in Dublin. Before the suits, before the whiskey brand, before the press conferences. There was a young plumber's apprentice from Crumlin, Dublin, training twice a day and going mostly unnoticed. Early footage from Conor McGregor's time at Straight Blast Gym shows a fighter who looked nothing like a world champion in the making. Skinny, unremarkable frame, no particular aura in a room full of tough men. But there is documented testimony from training partners about what happened when someone in the gym, either new or unaware of the hierarchy, decided to go harder than agreed during sparring. McGregor's switch flipped. Coaches described the shift in his body language as immediate and unmistakable. The relaxed looseness would vanish, his footwork would sharpen, and the timing on his left hand would become something almost mechanical in its precision. The key technical element? McGregor's distance management is elite. He controls the pocket like a chess player controls the center of the board. You cannot reach him unless he decides you can. Number 6, Judo Olympian deals with a mugger in France. A documented and widely discussed incident involves a French judoka, national-level competitor, Olympic program participant, who was targeted by a mugger near a metro station in Paris. The mugger chose his target based on appearance. A well-dressed, average-build man, not paying close attention, carrying what appeared to be an expensive bag. The approach was standard: aggressive posture, demands, physical intimidation. What the mugger could not have known is that judo at elite level trains one specific skill above all others: the ability to use someone's own momentum and aggression against them. The throw happened in under 2 seconds. The mugger went from standing to flat on the pavement, having contributed significant energy to his own take. The judoka held him in a pin called police and waited. The entire incident was captured on station CCTV. In the jungle, the gazelle that turns out to be a predator doesn't announce it. It simply responds. Number 7, Stephen Thompson's incident outside a club. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson grew up in a family karate school. His father is a karate champion. Thompson began competitive fighting as a child. By the time he reached the UFC, he was operating with over 20 years of full-contact tournament experience. He is also one of the most polite, soft-spoken athletes in combat sports, which is exactly the point. Thompson has spoken publicly about an incident outside a venue where he was targeted by a group looking for trouble. His response was not what they expected, not because he hurt anyone. He didn't. But because the moment his stance changed, the moment his weight shifted, and his hands came up in that distinctive karate point-fighting guard, something communicated itself to the group that words hadn't. They backed down before anything happened. Sometimes the most devastating thing a real fighter can do is simply let someone see the switch flip and let their own instincts do the rest. Number 8, the Gracie Challenge, professionals fighting challengers who had no idea. The Gracie Challenge ran for decades. The premise was simple. The Gracie family, operating out of their academy in Brazil and later in California, issued an open invitation to any martial artist, any street fighter, any person confident in their ability to fight. Come and prove your system works against Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What made these encounters so revealing was how they exposed the danger of fighting someone you fundamentally misread. Challengers would show up having seen a relatively normal-looking man in a GI, polite, measured, calm, and decide the match was already won. The footage that exists from these sessions tells a different story. The Gracie family members were never endangered. They moved with the slow patience of people who know exactly where the situation is going. The challenger was always working frantically, always reacting, always behind. In nature, the predator is the calmest creature in the encounter. Every single Gracie challenge proved that same law in a completely different jungle. 8 encounters, 8 moments where someone looked at the wrong person and decided they were safe. The pattern is always the same. The real fighter is calm, quiet, and unreadable, right up until the moment they are not. These aren't stories about violence. They're stories about what genuine competence looks like when it isn't performing for anyone. There's one more story we haven't told yet, and it might be the most disturbing example of a professional hiding in plain sight in the history of combat sports. That video is already up. Find it on the channel, and if you made it this far without questioning every quiet person you've ever underestimated, you should start now.